Today we finally got your full in-depth review of the Viltrox 24mm F1.8, a fast, wide-angle, budget-friendly lens for you Sony E-mount shooters. This is a full-frame lens, and here's some specs on it to get you going, as well as some test shots that we'll break down later in the video. Now, who do I recommend this lens to? Well, more of a beginner to intermediate shooter for sure, and there are a few reasons why I don't recommend it for professional work particularly, although like most lenses, you can absolutely produce professional results with it. Now, I do finance 99% of the lenses that I review on this channel, but Viltrox has sent me this lens for review today, but they have not paid me to make this video. This is completely my own opinion, and if you do appreciate that, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and join the community. Anyways, guys, let's dive into our first category of this review, which happens to be the build and features. So diving in and having a look at a quick unboxing reveals the bare bones basics. We've got a little soft case for it, some basic paperwork, and the lens and a lens hood. And that's it. It's made of metal and plastic, measuring only 4 1/8 inches long with the lens hood and 3 1/8 inches long without. It's also a great weight at only 340 grams or 0.75 of a pound. To further help with weight reduction, there are no buttons or switches on this lens whatsoever, except for an aperture ring, which is great for you video shooters. The focus ring turns smoothly and has a really nice feeling to it, as does the lens in general. On the front, you'll find 55mm filter threads, as well as a smaller front element. On the back, a metal mount with, unfortunately, a lack of a rubber gasket for weather sealing, but it does include a USB port for easy firmware upgrades. Overall, for build and features, a decent lens with not a ton of bells and whistles, and I give it 3.5 stars. Next up, we'll have a look at the value of this lens, and at $429 US, there's a ton of it. There are a few competitors like the Samyang 24 F1.8 at around $500, and of course there's the much more expensive but much better performing 24mm 1.4 G Master from Sony. We do have some other options available, not quite as fast, but the price is right with the new 24mm F2.8 from Sony. Value, of course, is closely related to performance, and that's what we're going to have a look at next, but as far as its comparables and what's available, I give this lens 4 stars for value. Okay, so diving into performance now, let's look at the autofocus first. Now, it is really quite snappy with a few audible ticks and clicks, but overall very fast and quite accurate in my experience. Here's an example in some relatively low light, wide open at f1.8. You are going to be able to get away with using it in quite low light with that fast aperture, and it's definitely adequate enough to use for most of your video needs. As far as photography, it's just as fast and going to be quite accurate, but don't count on this thing as a sports lens. It can keep up in higher shooting speeds, but definitely not designed to be a crazy fast sports lens. And here's some test shots with this lens as promised. The 24mm focal length is really quite versatile, and you can crop in when you need to. It looks great for environmental portraits, and the fast f1.8 produces some beautiful bokeh. Now, in terms of bright lights and flare control, it does a relatively good job at controlling that, and the 9 aperture blades contributes to some beautiful out of focus backgrounds. Chromatic aberration is present but decently controlled for the price if you ask me, but now let's dive into a more detailed look at the sharpness and optics of this lens. So here we have a quick look at the distortion and vignetting of this lens, and the first thing you'll probably notice here is some definitely heavy vignetting. It does have a bit of distortion to speak of as well, but let's look at the sharpness here wide open at f1.8. In the center of the image where it counts, it's pretty decent, but there is quite a quick fall off here, and as we get to about a third of the frame, it is a little bit soft. Speaking of the corners, nothing to write home about, but as we stop down, of course, you will see some improvement. Here we are at 2.2, f2.8, a little bit better, but still nothing amazing. We've got f4, and it's really not until about f5.6 or f8 where we see a really nice usable image across the board. Here's f8 looking pretty good, f11 even better, and then from f11 to f16 still pretty decent, and just a little bit of degradation here at f16. So overall, a decent performance again for what this thing is. And I will say that wide open here at f1.8, it is a bit of a nitpicky thing for me to see the vignetting this bad and a little bit of distortion to speak of. With your profile correction, it looks much better. Overall, for the sharpness and optics of this lens, a decent performance, especially considering the price. And that goes for the overall performance of this lens as well, and I give it 3.5 stars. So wrapping up guys, what are my final thoughts of this lens? Like most Viltrox lenses, I think there's a ton of value here, and it's really not going to let you down overall, but if you are looking for that professional grade optics and performance, there's really no replacement for the G Master if you ask me. As always, here's my personal pros and cons, and I also like to rate things on a scale from never think about again to consider to definitely buy. So if you are looking for a budget-friendly 24mm fast prime, well, I could definitely recommend this one for you and tell you to consider it. So there you have it guys, there's my thoughts on the Viltrox 24mm F1.8, a great budget pickup if you're looking for this focal length for Sony E-mount full frame cameras. Now if you did like this video and you want to see more just like it, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to pull the trigger on this lens, if you're ready to buy it, I will drop affiliate links down below. Thanks so much for watching guys, and like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.